Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Odyssey podcast, where me and my brother trek through cinema on a quest to find the best film ever made. This season, we begin our journey by counting down the AFI Top 100 films of all time. And tonight, we watch Bringing Up Baby. So, Randy, thoughts?
Why is 1930s humor so frickin' cringe?
Look, it was a different time.
It really was.
Yeah. I mean, granted, there's some bits in this that are kind of funny.
There was more than I thought there would be that were actually pretty funny.
Mm.
But the whole beginning bit, I just wanted to fucking slap Katherine Hepburn across her bitch face. Like, I was fuming.
That's Randy's hot take, is that Katherine Hepburn's character is just no.
Well, no, not that, but like, you know, that style of humor, you know, where like it's just so frustrating to watch for me. Like I like humor where like I could see it being funny in the moment, you know, type of thing. But like that stuff, I don't find amusing at all.
It's when one person just refuses to listen to what you're saying.
Yes, like that is just like the most infuriating thing I will ever experience in my entire life.
Yeah, honestly, I ain't gonna lie to you. There's my biggest issue with this is people talk way too fast, and I just lose so much of what the fuck they're saying. And I just was like,
really?
Can we please just slow the fuck down for like 30 seconds?
I didn't really miss anything like that.
No, well, it's not like, oh, I missed jokes or whatever. It's just like, there's so much chaos when people are talking.
That's like the point.
I know, and it annoys the shit out of me. It's one of those things where it's like, there's some bits where I really like, and also there's a few bits in this movie that go on for way too fucking long.
Really?
So the jailhouse sequence where she's like, you know, oh, coppers, see? I think that bit goes on way too long.
Really?
Way too fucking long.
I thought it was fine. That was actually one of the better bits of the whole fucking movie to me.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. One of my favorite bits was, you know, don't worry, the river's shallow. We can just wade across it.
Yeah, they just fall right in.
Fall right in.
Because that one was good.
Well, because I was like, those jokes are really good. You know, there's a setup, visual punchline, really dug it. It's when it's Katherine Hepburn just, you know, motor mouthing through a scene, and some of it works, but that scene is like fucking 10 minutes, and it just irks me.
You mean the whole like jailhouse scene, or just her talking to the constable?
That whole jailhouse sequence.
Oh, I thought you were just talking about her talking to the constable and like getting out of the place.
No, once they get into, like, the actual room with the interrogation thing, it's like, okay, it's going, but when it has the whole setup with her, like, talking to Carrie about Carrie... Okay, everybody, I should probably preface this. This movie is a lot of gag, one-liners, cringy-ish kind of humor. It's funny, though.
Basically, like, it's a lot of people, like, talking really fast and talking over each other to, like, kind of, like, get the jokes of, like, people trying to finish other people's sentences, but it's like, no, that's not really what I meant. But then, like, they just keep going. You know, and keep going. And it's just like one of those things where it's like, if you were a real person in this situation, you would just want to like bolt like a metal freaking like clamp over everybody's mouth and tell them to shut the fuck up.
Yeah. But I guess to prefix this conversation, since we talked a little bit, let's tell people what the movie's actually about.
Yes.
So the movie is about this David Huxley, played by Cary Grant. He's a mild-mannered paleontologist on the verge of getting married when he is tasked with gaining some much-needed grant money from a free-spirited Susan Vance, played by Katherine Hepburn. The two become enthralled in a wild ride of mishaps and mischiefs, culminating in a standoff with a leopard named Baby, a night in jail, and a swing around a giant dinosaur fossil.
But the thing is that he's not getting the grant money from Susan
directly
Vance.
From Susan Vance. Her
he doesn't know that
sphere.
He doesn't know that he's getting it from her until like the end of the movie. Right, it's like this whole thing where he's supposed to be getting this grant money from this person, and that person ends up knowing this person who's actually
this other person's
aunt.
This movie gets really convoluted really quickly, and it's just hoping that you're just along for the ride. I think that's kind of how the movie is logically going.
If you just turn off your brain, like really turned it off, and just kind of like let it flow, like I think you'd enjoy this movie a lot more. But I'm just sitting through the first half of the movie, or about like the first half, maybe like the first third of this movie, being like, I want to strangle Katherine Hepburn, and holy fuck, Cary Grant is gonna get divorced. Or not even get married.
Honestly,
I hate those setups for these movies.
Oh,
just hate it.
You hate you hate that setup?
I hate that setup of like, oh, you know, I'm gonna get married, and then like, oh, this wild lady like takes me away and does all this wacky stuff, and then I don't end up getting married. I'm like, that's a sad, tragic story. Like, actually tragic.
I mean, but Cary Grant's, betrothed. She no snoo.
Well, it's not that big of a deal. Like...
I get it. It's one of these movies where you can tell this was for a 1930s audience.
Yes.
But here's the thing.
We are not a 1930s audience.
Well, not even that. This didn't even hit for a 1930s audience.
No.
So do you want to know a bit of production history on this?
Oh, God.
Okay, so originally Howard Hawks, the director of this, very famous director, was brought in to direct a film for RKO called Gunga Din, but that was in production hell for like more than a year. And then he came across a short story in a magazine. He's like, this would make a good like throwaway movie, keep me under contract or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And that was Bringing Up Baby. The film went into production like 37. Katherine Hepburn, who was trying to make a comeback because she was in a couple of box office like non-starters for a while, and Cary Grant was this up-and-coming star. So they're like, you know what, whatever. Put him together. He gets a come-up. She might get a little, back-end production. It'll be fine. Movie wraps in 37. Gets rave reviews by critics. They really dig it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a box office flop. It literally only makes back its budget of $1.1 million after being in circulation for like 10 years. It basically got re-released throughout the 40s and 50s, and that's when it made its money back finally, until it got pulled from showings. And this is also one of the few films on the list that has 0 awards. This movie is only recognized in any kind of like awards or honors in reevaluations in the late 90s, when it gets put in the Library of Congress.
Fucking knew it.
Yeah, even people in the 30s didn't get behind this.
Even people in the 30s used to like, yeah, this kind of cringe though.
I want to imagine.
Excuse me, sir, but your film, it seemed a bit of cringe.
Now look here, Sonny. This film's a little cringy, yo.
Exactly.
I imagine that's how 1930s newsies talk.
Like during the latter half of the movie, like there's some good jokes in there. Like there's a lot of good stuff. Like when they're sitting at the table and Cary Grant gets up all the time to like follow the dog around. I thought that was pretty funny.
Like mid-conversation, they're trying to like talk to him, and he's just no, yes. He's answering literally the exact wrong thing for every answer, and then just gets up and walks away.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of good.
There's some good bits in there. Also, when like Katherine Hepburn's trying to get him to stay at the house, so she takes his clothes to get it pressed, and he comes out in like the frilly, negligee. And when he finally snaps...
Oh, when he snaps and stomps on her foot and yells at
like
her
the aunt and the maid and everybody,
yes.
I'm like, good old Cary Grant.
I'm like, God, thank God. Well, thank the Lord.
You know the crazy thing? Cary Grant improv'd a lot of his bits of dialogue in this. Mm-hmm. Like the whole thing where she's like, why are you dressed like that? Maybe I've turned gay all of a sudden.
He jumps.
Yeah, he improv'd that. He improv'd a couple of bits of dialogue.
Good. Yeah. That was a good one.
Because Cary Grant, he was like a vaudeville guy.
Uh-huh.
But Katherine Hepburn, she never did like comedy before, and they had to like teach her how to do comedy and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that's why, because I feel Cary Grant is way better at playing like the bumbling idiot than Katherine Hepburn is playing like the inept pixie dream girl. Like, is that just me?
Yeah, because I mean, Katherine Hepburn, she just comes off as like malicious half the time.
She feels like she's out to ruin this man's career.
Yes. I mean, at the beginning where he's like, no, that's my car. And she's like, oh, well, could you move it? And he's like, no, this is my car.
Well, no. Well, can you at least move that, your car at least 4 feet back so I can clear? And, okay, I understand, like, that bit in, like, real world context is, like, not funny. It's just like, fuck this.
Yes.
But I ain't gonna lie, when when she peels out and he's on the running board and he's like, I'll be back in a minute, I laughed. I'm sorry.
That was probably the only funny part of that bit.
It's one of those things where there's few bits in this that I'm like, okay, I can acknowledge that it's like, this makes no sense, and it's just like, it's designed now to make you pissed, but it's still kind of funny to me. I think that's the thing. There's enough in the first half to kind of get me going for the second half where it actually starts getting good. There's just
There
enough.
isn't enough for me. I want to just leave. I was legitimately going to walk out of the theater here in my brother's room.
Yes, in the nice home theater we have that is my fucking TV. But Really? Were you really gone?
So bad. It was so bad. Like, I could barely watch it. But then, during the latter half of the movie, the second half, it was alright.
Alright.
I didn't feel so bad.
What turned it for you? Because I guess that's a real question for you. What actually...
When the leopard shows up.
As soon as baby shows up?
Yeah, when the leopard shows up. Because it's a chonky little baby.
Right, he's like, it was a big fat little kitty.
It was a big old kitty.
Also,
I freaking love that cat.
Also, dude, so you notice how, like, in the first half of that, leopard stuff, like, they're interacting with it, it's on set or whatever.
Yeah.
And then in the latter half, you can tell it's like, oh, they're 1930s green screen.
Yeah, superposing it on.
Yeah, you know why?
Did it hurt somebody?
Tried to maul Katherine Hepburn.
Good on you.
Trainers
Good on you, baby. Good on you.
But yeah, yeah.
And I feel so bad. I'm like ragging on Katherine Hepburn. Like,
she's won like the most Oscars out of any female like performer of all time.
Well, yeah, but holy shit, did I hate her in this movie?
She's a great actress. She's supposed to. I wonder if that's the point. If you're
just a comedy, I'm not supposed to hate her. I'm supposed to think she's quirky and funny and shit, but she's too quirky and kind of weird.
She's too rich. Too rich.
Too rich?
Too rich.
What do you mean? Like rich? Like too rich? Like some dark chocolate or something? Like
no, like there's too much money. She should have been like the the poor one on the come. I would have been so more into this if it turned out she was like a con artist, and that was like the reveal at the end of the movie. Like she was just conning everybody the whole time. Because at least I'm like, okay, that kind of explains why she's like always trying to talk faster than people can understand to get away with shit.
Yes.
But in this, it's just like, I don't get it. I feel there's something wrong with the woman.
There's a lot of things wrong with this movie, let alone Katherine Hepburn's character of Susan Vance. Oh, God.
So, obviously, you're not a fan of the first half of this movie.
No.
I'm okay enough with it to get along. But what about this did you specifically like? Is there a particular performance, scene? Is the story good? Like, what exactly about this did you dig?
The story's not that great. What I really dug was, like, the whole, like, basically the, like, character interactions, like, during the second half of the movie, where you can kind of tell that, like, Cary Grant and, like, Katherine Hepburn was, like, started to get, like, a feeling for the whole thing. The jokes start hitting a little bit more, especially when they're, like, following around the dog in the yard and whatnot. Like, I feel like, basically, like, everything starts to get, like, going to where, like, the jokes are actually funny now, and like there's this chonky leopard, and I love the chonky little leopard.
Little chonky leopard.
Little chonker.
Also, that chonker leopard, when it's fighting the dog George.
Yeah.
How many dogs they go through?
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing. How many dogs do they go through for when
because
there's fighting George?
Yeah, there's a part in the movie where the full-grown leopard is fighting this little, like, Jack Russell Terrier or some shit.
Yeah.
And, yeah, they're going. They're just going at it. Yeah. I don't know if they trained the leopard
they're
or
like,
what.
They're, like, play fighting in the movie, right? But, like, in real life, I'm just like, bruh.
Dude, this is the 30s. They were still firing live rounds at you, all right, in gunfights. That shit was real.
I don't know, man. How many dogs do they have to go through? How many little Georgies?
How many chickens did they go through when they crashed into that truck?
Oh, also, God, too. Yeah,
dude, that's another thing.
They used live chickens there. I'm
those
like, did
real.
They fucking kill those chickens when they did that stunt? Like, what the fuck?
Dude, that's the thing about some older movies. Like, if you're looking, you're just like, man, that looks so real. I'm like, it's probably because it is real.
Probably because it is real.
But I'm trying to find a way to angle in on this movie. And
to get some real discussion out of it?
Get some real discussion out of it, because I think there is merit to this. Because, this film, not a box office hit. This movie was a critical success, but it faded into obscurity. If it weren't for, like, re-releases over, like, the 40s and 50s, this probably would have just disappeared into the ether.
Yeah.
And even then, I think it did disappear into the ether. No one talked about it again until the 80s, 90s.
Well, I mean, it's got two good actors in it.
Two of the most famous Hollywood actors, yeah.
Yeah, especially at this time.
Oh, yeah, so I'm wondering, why did people come back and say, you know what? Yeah, this is one of the best American films of all time. I'm wondering why that lines in.
I think it's just because it has Cary Grant and
Katherine
Hepburn in it, and it's a comedy from the 30s. Like they had a checklist, and they were like, "This hits all the checklists we need. We gotta have the representation of Katherine Hepburn, gotta have the representation of Cary Grant. It's a comedy. It's in the 30s. Bada bing, bada bong."
Howard Hawks is on there. Howard Hawks is one of the best, like, directors of all time.
Yeah.
But Even he
maybe.
acknowledges this isn't even his best movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
But that's the thing, like, his better films are, like, westerns. Like, I'm pretty sure he directed Rio Bravo, and that was the movie John Ford watched, and was like, wait, John Wayne can act?
Oh, goodness.
Literally.
And then made a whole
cool.
career out of that?
Literally made a whole career out of that. But, no, that was, like, Howard Hawks directed Rio Bravo in, like, the 50s. John Ford already worked with John Wayne for, like, a decade.
Oh.
And was like, I didn't know John Wayne could act.
I didn't know.
Howard Hawks was like, yeah, I'm just better than you, John Wayne. Or John Ford, have all those Oscars. I'm better.
Damn.
Yeah, talking shade.
I'm honestly sitting here looking at this movie and its position on the list, which is... What's its position on the list? 87? No, 88.
Yeah, this comes in at 88. And give me a second to double check where it was before. Okay, yeah, so I'm looking here, and Bring Up Baby comes in at, like, 88 on the 07 list, but it used to be down in, like, the 90s. Like, 97? 99? Something like that. And it moved up.
Moved up? That's a big ask.
I'm wondering if that is just because, looking at this movie, I can see the DNA of this movie in other films. Like, the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, trope. Like, this kind of, like, really screwball-y romantic comedy angle. This, like, really weird, mischievous, fast-talking, like, atmosphere of comedy. I can see this. Like, I can see why this is an influential film. And that's probably why it's on this, to be honest.
It's so bad, because, personally, all of those tropes you just named, I hate all of them.
I understand.
I'm just over here being like, wow, this movie is worse than I thought and influenced all the things I hate.
Look, you gotta applaud the villains when they do something right, alright?
God damn it. I'm just like struggling to find anything worthwhile saying in this movie.
Well, okay, I think one thing that I find I guess it's not worthwhile, but it's incredibly interesting. You know how Cary Grant's walking around, he's got the big glasses, fedora, suit, whatever?
Yeah.
You notice how he looks exactly like Clark Kent?
Yeah.
You know that Christopher Reeves literally used Cary Grant's performance in this and based Clark Kent in Superman?
Really?
Yeah, and that's the thing. 90% of people who have portrayed Superman basically just use the David Huxley character as, like, the foundation to base their performances off of. The really, like, awkward, mild-mannered kind of bumbling.
Yeah.
And
that's really interesting. Yeah, that makes total sense.
I mean, the visually works, and, like, the characterization, it works. I think...
Yeah, because he's supposed to be kind of like this really mild-mannered person you're not supposed to take note of, Who's supposed to seem
David
like
Huxley,
they couldn't really, like, he couldn't be Superman, there's no way.
Yeah. And then, David Huxley finally, he snaps, yells at people, and you're like, this guy. There's a rage underneath.
Then he
He's
laser
brewing.
visions freaking Katherine Hepburn's character into the ground,
You just really do not like Susan Vance at all.
Gosh, no.
Okay, well, I guess, who do you think this movie is for? Like, do you think people now would enjoy this? Who do you think you could give this to that would enjoy it? Like, do you think people who just like old comedies would dig this? Or do you think this is still too of its time? Like, do you think this ages well at all?
Honestly, at this point, because, I haven't seen any movies from this era.
Well, we've seen Swing Time.
Funny.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, the second half of this movie is, like, it's funny to, like, an extent, but it's definitely not even close, like, Mel Brooks movies, basically, or, like, Monty Python, or anything like that,
That's kind of tipping the hand a little bit, where it's like, these very old-style comedies are a big ask for you.
Big ask for me, yeah. Like, I don't know. I just don't really have much to say, like, about this movie, about not anything really. I just really didn't like it.
I mean, that happens. I mean, all in all, because I've seen this movie before. I watched it for the double feature podcast I did a long time ago. And David, the co-host there, was like, hey, watch Bringing Up Baby. We'll pair it up with some other old-style 1930s, 40s, 50s, just romantic comedy, right? Mm-hmm. And it was this and The Apartment. The Apartment is also on this list, like, 30 spaces above it.
Yeah.
And The Apartment's a masterpiece. I love that movie. This movie, even at the time, I was like, it was fine. I don't know. I was like half watching it for the first half, and then the second half came in. I was like, oh, okay, now there's some funny bits in this. But this is like, now rewatching it again, I'm like, okay, benefit of the doubt. I give that a lot with these old comedies. Benefit of the doubt. This is very of its time. Watching it, okay, they're trying. Yeah, the bit's fine. Okay, I get a little chuckle. And the second half comes, I'm like, oh, okay, no, that joke still holds up. Okay, that gag actually got a laugh out of me. And then the end, I'm like, oh, this bit's going all along, but okay, the movie's out. Well, the movie's out, we're back in. Okay.
It's like, you gotta treat the movie with, like, kid gloves, you know?
A little bit. Like,
you have to have, like, so many, like, preconceived notions before you come into it to, like, try and give yourself
that benefit of
the benefit to, like, be like, okay, it's an old movie, the jokes are gonna be a little strange for me, I gotta keep an open mind, and you gotta go through all these, like, hoops to try and make the first half of this movie work,
And that's the thing. Like, if I wanted to tear into this movie, I absolutely can. I'm be real with you. The performances are fine. They're elevated comedies, but with the exception of Cary Grant, I could really take or leave any of everybody else in this. Katherine Hepburn, I think, is miscast, if I'm being honest. I think you could have gotten a much better, like, comedic actress for this. And the other point of that is, like, the story is serviceable enough, even if it's wacky. I get it. It's supposed to be wacky.
I think it's bad. It's not even serviceable. It's just bad. I think, like, the whole setup where it's like, basically that the main character is going to get divorced by the end of the movie.
Yeah, I think that is true. It's also one of these movies where I kind of dislike it, where 90% of the problems can be solved with, like, a phone call and talking to an adult.
Yes.
In the room. Like, those kind of movies, generally, I have issue with. Which is why a lot of comedies I don't like. I like Monty Python and Mel Brooks movies because you exist in an elevated world.
Yes.
Everything's ridiculous.
Yes.
And that works because I buy into the world. Yeah, the problems can't be solved by just stopping and telling somebody what's wrong because they're in the same boat as you. Everything's ridiculous. Where it's like these kind of movies, a lot of romantic comedies I can't fuck with. I simply can't. There's, like, very few.
I can't.
I simply can't. Like, okay, because I've seen movies like Fever Pitch or Head Over Heels, where those movies are designed to just be shitty rom-coms. But I can kind of give them the benefit of the doubt, because at least the world they're in is coherent, and the comedy comes from two very normal people in a very weird situation, and it just comes because they're kind of quirky. Whatever, fuck it, I can jive with it. But this shit, I don't get it. Like, I want to, I really want to, because I know people fucking love this movie.
Real who? Whomst.
I've seen a lot of people, most of them are like, critics, a lot of filmmakers, like John Carpenter fucking loves this movie. Well, his personal favorite, Howard Hawks, is, like, obviously his westerns, Rio Bravo, but he also loves, those Howard Hawks films, like, this one, Bringing Up Baby. There's also another one, His Girl Friday. He digs Howard Hawks movies. He likes this movie. A lot of people like this movie.
Like this movie? How do you like this movie? You must just have, like, some kind of, like, thing, where you can enjoy that comedy at the beginning of the movie.
I mean, you also got to think about it. This movie, it's a very classical kind of comedy. Like, this you can look at and be like, this is kind of the template-y thing that went into old Hollywood comedies, right?
I should probably preface something about this. So, like, at the very, very beginning, Cary Grant is talking to the lawyer of...
Mr. Peabody.
Yeah, he's talking to Mr. Peabody. And he's supposed to, like, get this, like, convince Mr. Peabody to convince... What's her name?
Aunt Elizabeth?
Elizabeth to, like, get the grant for the museum, get the $1 million grant. And so he's, like, just talking to him about it at the beginning, but he's kind of, like, a little clumsy and awkward about it.
Mm-hmm. Spaghetti falling out of his pockets.
I thought the movie was going to be more like that. That's kind of funny. But then when it gets to, like, Katherine Hepburn's character, where it's, like, that, but cranked up to, like, 25 on a 1 to 5 scale.
Yeah.
I just couldn't take it. I was just like, this is way too much. Like, I can get, like, Cary Grant kind of being, like, awkward, like, trying to, like, fumble his way through, like, talking to Mr. Peabody. and just kind of being like this earnest character of like, he's really trying, but he doesn't really know how.
He doesn't have that, like, he's a scientist, right? He's a scientist who's very socially awkward, very self-isolating, works, and now he has to be the front man for the museum. And I could get behind that, because he's really good as that kind of, like, bumbling, not really, like, socially graceful kind of guy.
Yeah.
Really shy, awkward, but then Katherine Hepburn comes in like a freight train. And, like, Susan Vance, as a character, I feel this could have worked better if it just was a building kind of thing. Where at first, like, oh, misunderstanding with the golf ball. That's a fine introduction scene.
Yeah, that was okay.
Because it was like, oh yeah, she's this woman who's just not only just, like, talking over Cary Grant, but she also really doesn't care what he has to say.
Yes.
Basically, she's like, I'm doing something, just leave me alone. The only reason I'm talking to you is so you don't notice that I'm just going.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, that's a character. I can dig that, somebody who's like, I'm only talking to you so you don't understand what I'm doing, so I can just finish what I'm doing and have a nice day, goodbye. But then
it's okay.
And then it's the car bit.
And then she steals his fucking car.
Right? It just, once she steals the car, I'm like, oh, the wackiness goes from like 0 to 60.
Well, the whole thing is that she's no longer just like, kind of like, because that person that like just talks to you so she can get, keep going on with what she's have a nice day. That kind of person is not the same person that Katherine Hepburn is playing.
Yeah.
So like kind of like that whole like personification of her character that you kind of like get an idea for, just thrown out the window. No, she's nothing like that. She's just a ditz.
Yeah, she's this ditzy criminal. She like steals cars.
Steals a purse.
And I really feel bad just ragging on Katherine Hepburn.
Because she's a good actress.
She's a fine actress.
Fucking movie.
Like, I will go on record. She is a great actress. In this film, it was hard. Like, this might have been a hard ask for anybody based on the script. I'll probably give him that. Because even Cary Grant improv'd like half of his bits.
Yeah.
So it might have been the thing where the script wasn't all the way there, and Katherine Hepburn is like, well, I'll stick to the script. I'll do some bits if me and Cary work it out, but if that's not happening, then okay, whatever. And I feel that's probably the biggest issue, is the script's not totally there.
Probably not.
And granted, this was also a secondary production for Howard Hawks, just so he could have something in the pipeline.
Something to do while in the meantime.
Yeah, so
he's like, we got a leopard, we got we got to use it for something.
And I don't know. I mean, this might just be a short recording because let's be honest. I guess we'll just go
trying to get away from this thing as fast as I can. It's like I'm running from the fucking leopard for the movie. I'm just trying to avoid it with all of my.
Okay. Well, and this is weird because we opened up with like favorite bits because we just opened up with talking about like this movie actually is funny.
There are some funny parts in this movie, mostly like near the end of the movie. I really liked some of them.
Okay, favorite bit.
My favorite bit is with the gardener when he's taking the drink.
And he just has the thing where
he's
looks
just like,
over.
maybe I'll start seeing things. And then the leopard like climbs up onto a table next to him and he looks over at it. Hannah, get the gun. Get the gun.
At that
just
moment.
Like, maybe I'll start seeing things. And looks over and sees a leopard and drops his bottle.
I like that. That's a classic bit.
It's a classic bit. That bit will always work.
And honestly, that might be why it's on. This might be the first bit.
What do you mean?
That might be the first time that bit was on film.
Maybe. Also, another one that's very similar is when Aunt Elizabeth and the hunter, what was his name?
Oh, Major Applegate.
Major Applegate.
The most pretentious name I could find.
Yes, they go for like a walk outside, and Major Applegate like sees the leopard.
And is trying to get Aunt Elizabeth inside.
Trying to get Aunt Elizabeth inside. He's like, don't you feel cold out here? Like, it's a little bit nippy. Don't you feel a little cold outside without a gun? That shit had me howling. That was actually probably the best bit of the whole thing.
I was watching the movie, and Randy has been dead fucking silent the last, 20 minutes. I think he fucking left, and then I just hear this banshee wail behind me. He's fucking dying.
That shit was actually good. Don't you feel cold out here without a gun? That shit's funny.
That's a good bit. That's a good bit.
That's a really good bit.
Oh.
And that's a good bit that plays into the whole idea of, the entire concept of the movie of, people just, talking weirdly at each other.
Yeah.
You know, because that is one of those things where, you know, because, like, half the lines of the movie are, huh? What?
Yeah.
And,
Well,
yeah, really? I'm like,
what? No shit.
yeah, like, shit like that, you know, where people are, like, trying to figure out what each other are, like, talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of those things, one of the only lines in this movie that, like, fits into that criteria. If somebody says that to you and you're like, wait, what?
Wait, what? What's going on?
Don't you feel cold out here without a gun? And Elizabeth, what? What did you say? Hold up.
Okay.
Hold up.
There was one bit in this that and it's super small. It's not a big deal, but I fucking was like, I was dying. When she's like, oh, drying his sock off and it catches on fire. And he's like, oh, David, your sock's on fire. He's like, it's fine. Just throw it away. I don't care anymore. And she's like, oh, okay. And she grabs the other sock that's sitting there and just throws it into the fire. And she's like, I saw that and I was like, but that sock was fine. And then Cary Grant does the exact look of like that sock was fine. And then he's like, I don't care anymore. And she
was just like, oh, yeah, I guess you could have used that.
It's so tiny, it's so subtle. They don't hang on it.
That was a great bit.
So good.
Because seems like something somebody would actually do, you know? They're like, you know, if one sock's gone, I guess you won't need the other. I guess actually you could have used that one right after they throw it in the fire. Oh, actually, yeah, you probably could have used that one.
that tiny bit I got. Also, there's one bit at the beginning of the movie that it's when Cary Grant tears his tuxedo, tells Katherine Hepburn to fuck off, and then rips off the back of her dress, and then he's trying to hide her ass with the thing. That bit of physical comedy, and then she was like, oh no, oh shit, and then he was like, just it's okay, just I'll stand behind you, and she's like, get closer. I can't get closer. I'll be inside of you. And then they just stroll outside, and he's like, I'll be right back. 1 minute. Like that. Little bit, I think that little bit of physical comedy there.
Yeah, that part was decent.
It was good, and
I was still a little upset when that part came around, so I couldn't enjoy it to the fullest.
And that's the thing. That one in isolation is great, and I get both their characters. Right? She's kind of hard-headed, just kind of ditzy, and just wants to like barrel through the rest of this interaction. And Cary Grant is like, please, just leave me alone. I'm trying to be nice, and I'll just please give it whatever. And then he's like, oh fuck. And he's just being too polite for his own good. Yeah. That is 90% of Cary Grant's, or David Huxley's character. Too polite for his own good.
Definitely.
And I love that bit. But the best bit of the movie.
What?
I think we just wade through the river. I mean, it doesn't look that deep.
It's the simplest bit in the entire movie. He asks her, like, well, how deep's the river? And she's like, oh, it's not very deep. We can just wade right through it. And he goes, oh, okay. And they both just go right off the freaking bank. Straight into
like, an 8 feet of water.
Yeah, 8 feet of water or something. Yeah, it's one of those, it's just a timeless bit. It's like just pure good, like, physical comedy, you know?
And I think that's the thing. Because people have said for, I don't know how many years, where if you go back to old movies, drama doesn't always age well, but comedy is forever. And I feel that's bullshit. Not correct.
It's fucking bullshit.
But here's the thing. Sound comedies, I don't know if those all age well. Silent comedies, though, where it's physical bits.
God, I can't wait to get to one.
Oh, don't worry. We have a few on here. We have The General with Buster Keaton. We have a couple Charlie Chaplins on here.
I freaking can't wait to get away from these old black and white sound comedies. Holy shit.
Yeah, don't worry. I think we're going to get to the Marx Brothers soon, and the Marx Brothers actually are good.
Okay.
I can give you one Marx Brothers bit to keep you on.
Sure,
all right? Sure. You know, there's a guy who comes in and he's like, hello, my wife and our 13 children have checked into the hotel. I was like, hi, you must love your wife. And he's like, yeah, I love my wife. Well, I love my cigar, but sometimes I take my mouth off of it every once in a while. Like, Groucho Marx just throws that out in like one of these, and that's like just a zinger. He goes on and just goes right back to just one-lining the rest of the movie.
That's a pretty good one. That's pretty, I love my cigar too, but I can get my mouth off of it every once in a while.
Yeah, and that's
a good
a 30s comedy, 40s comedy, where it's like, yo, like the Hays Code is like, look, it's like, is that too much? Is that too much? But
that's a good bit.
But this movie, okay, so we can say there are pieces of gold in this.
Yes, there's little nuggets all like strewn lightly throughout the movie.
Yeah, and I honestly could still recommend this for like those curious, because this I think is probably a pretty decent entry point into like 30s comedies. If you can get into this, you can get into the rest of them. This is probably a very
Yeah,
accessible, like,
yeah.
30s early sound
Like,
comedy.
if you can deal with this, you can probably deal with a lot of the other ones.
Yeah. And I guess with that, the AFI question. Up, down, sideways, off. Where's it go?
Come straight off. Don't even fall down the page. Just move, like, laterally off of it. As fast as possible.
You no appreciation here?
No, nothing.
None at all?
Not really, no. There's got to be something better we could put here that, like, fits, like, this bill. I don't know of anything, but, you know,
That's why it's holding on.
Somebody else probably does.
This is
The apartment's already on here. Just fucking bring it up, baby, off of here.
Look, this is one of those movies where I'm like, I completely...
Put Rio Bravo on here.
We should have fucking Rio Bravo on here, but I'll get to that later. But this is one of those movies where I completely understand why it's here. It's influenced a lot of comedies, Howard Hawks film, Cary Grant, Katherine Hepburn. This is one of those kind of weird films that it's like, oh yeah, it didn't do well at the time, but upon reevaluation, people really dig it. It's influenced a lot of directors. People really like it. But the time probably has come. I know it's moved up in recent years, but I would be surprised if it is not in the low 90s or completely off if we get a new list. Would be surprised. I think this movie just doesn't hold up as well as the AFI wants it to. And I guess that might be a thing where the AFI might not care if it holds up well. It's like, as long as it's a greatest American film. But I don't think this... Nah. I don't know if this is. I don't think it is.
Nah.
We can find better.
We can definitely... Hopefully, I hope that we could find better than this film.
But, yeah. I'm sorry, everyone, if this might have been a disappointment to you.
Disappointing episode of,
the
Mystery
Film Odyssey.
Yeah, Film Odyssey 3000 over here, ripping on Bringing Up Baby.
Yeah, I mean, we gave it some good points, but yeah, all in all...
There were some good bits in the movie. Like, I don't want to come off as, like, really raggy on the movie like it's a 1 out of 10 or anything like that. It's definitely not. It's more like a 5 or 6 out of 10.
Pretty middle of the road. It's like, this is not the worst film you've seen.
This is definitely not. Not even close. It's just, like, that first part of the movie, like, Cary Grant and Katherine Hepburn's, like, first couple interaction in the movie just really turned me off. And then it was like, oh, okay, we kind of get past that to where their interactions get, like, better. But it's just like that, it left such a sour taste in my mouth for the whole movie.
It's one of those things where it's almost like this movie was custom designed to piss you off.
Yes, specifically the car bit. The car bit was designed to just piss me right the fuck off. Holy shit.
But, like, I would still give it, like, the 5-6. Because I'm very middle of the road on this. I take it or leave it.
Honestly?
But I'm a very, like, happy 5-6. I'm like, no, this is, like, good. It's just not great.
You know what? If you just started the movie after the car scene where, like, they're in, like, the like, restaurant, I'd probably give this movie, like, a 6.5, maybe a 7.
Really?
If you literally just started the movie there.
Yeah, that probably would work.
Because then we don't get any of the setup about his wife, or his soon-to-be wife.
Yeah, his fiancé.
His fiancé. We don't get any of that shit. We don't get the horrible car scene. We don't get any of that shit.
Why
it
is,
just
why is the girlfriend or fiancé thing in the movie?
I don't know. Like, there was some fixation with that. Because it happens in, like...
It happens in Swing Time.
It happened in Swing Time, too. And I hated it there. And I hate it here. It's just like, why is there this, like, looming tragic element in my comedy? What the fuck? Like, why is it when I try and think about the story, I realize, oh yeah, this isn't a comedy, this is a tragedy.
This is about a man
Somebody's losing their fiance, who they probably loved for fucking 5 years beforehand, this movie, and then suddenly,
Every romantic comedy is the story of a broken relationship somewhere.
Yeah, fucking apparently, according to Hollywood, goddamn. Couldn't Cary Grant have just been single?
I think that would probably work better if if the girlfriend character was just like his like assistant that is just like, no, you got to stay focused or whatever, and they weren't romantically entangled. It probably would have worked fine. Honestly, if you cut out the whole bit at the golf course and just started it with like he's in the thing. And it's like, oh, you need to go to dinner to meet this guy. And then it just led into the whole Katherine Hepburn thing where it's like, oh, he got into this weird interaction with a lady and now he's like, I feel kind of guilty because I ruined her nightgown and I gotta do right by that. No, this kind of builds up just about right. No, that's actually probably a decent enough setup for an old movie like this.
That would have been totally fine.
Because the whole setup
made
and
it
context of the
way
film
better.
changes immediately.
Way better. Like, oh my god, it would have been so much
Actually,
better.
if it started there, and then as things kind of slowly escalate up, then you see Katherine Hepburn's like, oh, she's not just this kind of like, you know, ditzy, you know, strong-headed kind of gal, and it's like, oh no, she's just kind of like okay, she's got a wild streak, and I was like, oh no, now she's like stealing stuff. It would escalate a lot better. All right, I'm about to do a machete cut on this film. I'll be back.
Yeah, we're about to cut it up.
I'm about to fix this.
Fix the fucking...
Fix this like almost like
maybe
80-year-old movie, 90-year-old movie.
Maybe the reason John Carpenter likes this movie so much is because he made his own fucking cut of it.
Maybe. But yeah, so next week though.
Yes.
Next week Randy, you will be satiated. We're getting out of 30s comedies and we're getting into something a little bit different. We're getting into 1957's courtroom dramas with 12 Angry Men.
Oh, we're about to have an hour and a half long episode. Oh, it's going to be so good. Oh, my dick.
Would Randy like to give people a little reason why you're so hyped for 12 Angry Men?
12 Angry Men was like my favorite movie for 10 years. Like, I fucking love that movie. It's so good. I love the whole theme of the movie. Oh, I shouldn't get too far into it. I shouldn't get too far into it.
You're just opening up with this is one of those movies you're into. I was going on like a 20-minute rant on the previous episode to preface my probably 50-minute rant in the next episode, and then we'll on our Platoon episode I'll have another 20-minute rant to kind of wind it down. I'll talk about. Is this going to be one of those things where I'm just going to open up with, so Randy, how'd you like the movie? And I can just leave.
You just leave, grab yourself a beer, get some popcorn, come back. 30 minutes later I'll be like, all right, Dean. So how'd you like the movie?
I was like, it was good. It was decent.
All right, let's
I'll be over here being like, didn't hold up, and you're like, you motherfucker. But yeah, so
jump across this tiny table where you record from at you.
But yeah, everybody. So next week, 12 Angry Men, and
I can't wait.
One of Randy's favorite films of all time. I really dig the movie, but I haven't seen it in a long time.
Me neither. I actually haven't seen it in a while.
But if you want to keep up with that, you can check us out anywhere you can get podcasts. Google Podcast, Anchor FM, where we post this. You can also find us on Spotify. And you can also find us, most importantly, on our YouTube channel, In the Frame, where we post this podcast, the Film Odyssey podcast, as well as 2 other podcasts, the Film Club podcast that I do with me and Becky. That one is Nostalgia Picks.
Cringe.
We basically look at old movies and see if they still hold up, more or less. But, yeah. Any last words, Randy?
It's not too deep, is it? No, you can just wade right across.
Still a good bit. All right, everybody. Have a good week.